Welcome to today's Northwest Passages live stream. My name's Christy Burns. I produce the Morning Review podcast for the Spokesman-Review and help coordinate Northwest Passages book club events when we have them. So because we are now doing community forums online, that's what you're watching. Today, we're taking on the topic of looking for a job during the pandemic. While unemployment numbers are skyrocketing, high school graduates and college graduates are looking at a drastically different job market. Today, we have Dr. Jeffrey Stafford. He is a professor of organizational communication and leadership studies at Eastern Washington University. He has a great perspective on this, and we'll share that insight today with Spokesman-Review business reporter Amy Edelin. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Jeffrey. Thank you for joining us today.
I'm excited to be here. This is exciting and fun, so hopefully we can do some good work to help some people.
Yeah, for sure. So as Christy said, we're going through an unprecedented time with COVID-19 and its impact on our job market. And also at the same time, there's been this shift towards virtual learning, teleworking. So I guess, how would someone go about finding a job in this market right now?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a couple of things actually more than a couple, but there's some things I'd like to point out. First, we did, another professor and one of our great advisors in a career center at Eastern did 3 one-hour sessions last week that will go into a lot more detail. And those are available on the Eastern Washington University Career Services website. So you can go there and look at those. But I would suggest to you that, yeah, these are tough times. It's incredibly tough. But, and there's probably not enough jobs out there for everyone that wants one. But there's more than enough jobs out there for people who want one, are willing to work hard and prepare, and know how to go about doing it. So that would be one thing. So I divide preparing for the job search into, used to be 2 ways, now 3. The first thing that's foundational is knowing who you are and what your values are and what you need and want, and not just to get a job to buy pizza and pay the mortgage. That's incredibly important to all of us. But where do you want to spend the rest of your life, and how are you going to get there? So, and that's going to be a different thing for someone like me, who's 65 plus and will be retiring someday, and versus my son, who's 28, who's in the middle of that. So that's one thing. What are your values? The second thing is, you've got to think of yourself as a product. And that's distasteful to many people. But that's what we are. We are a product made up of our skills, our knowledge, our abilities, our experiences that we are hoping that a potential employer will buy and give us a job and give us a chance to do good work. The third thing is preparing that product in an elegant way, having everything from a great resume and cover letter and interviewing skills to a killer LinkedIn profile, and managing your social media brand, because we have a brand. And especially if you're looking for a job right now, you do that. The other thing I would say is, don't get discouraged. I have a friend who recently got a job and is starting back up on June 1st. He was out of work for 5 months. On the other hand, he kept working at it. He kept working at it hard. And 5 months is under the national average for finding a new job. And so a lot of times I get students or former students saying, what's wrong? I've been applying for jobs and I'm not getting anything. I said, well, what have you applied for? Well, I've applied for these 4 jobs. And I'm kind of like, no, you should have applied for 50 jobs and expected to get rejected 47 times. And then you'll wake up one morning and you'll have 3 offers that week. And then you have to decide. So those are some initial thoughts that So know who you are, what are your values, what do you have to offer, prepare that product, and then learn how to sell it in a way that will be effective. And expect rejection, embrace rejection.
So would you say that right now is a good time to maybe shift careers during the pandemic? And how would someone go about marketing themselves during
Okay.
this time?
Well, first answer is yes. If you want to shift, and there's new industries that are going to open because of this. The world of the Spokesman-Review has been changing over the last several years. Print journalism isn't what it is. Universities are changing. Private industry is changing. Restaurants are changing. Everything is changing. Every time we've had a major sociological, political, something new has been invented, there's new industries out there. So absolutely, follow your heart. What do you want to do? So I don't think that's bad to switch now. Or if you're really happy where you're at, stay there. But you have to think of, or I believe you have to think of your job and your career in a much broader sense. An example I sometimes give is back in the olden days, the village blacksmith, if he, or occasionally she in those days, thought of themselves as making horseshoes, and then the automobile came along, they were out of business. If they thought of themselves as facilitating transportation, they moved from making horseshoes to making automobile parts. So absolutely, a person can change now. And the most important thing to do, I think, right now is taking account, assessing yourself and your skills and your abilities, your knowledge, your experiences, and then saying, what does the job market need? How do I make that better? This is a great time to learn. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got from one of my mentors was to read constantly. Now, this was back in the olden days when we didn't have the internet, we didn't have blogs, and he read an article a day and a book a week. And I started doing that because he wanted me to do that. And even today, I'm not quite at that level, but I'm reading 3 or 4 or more articles or blogs, or watching something like this a week, and a book every week and a half, 2 weeks, and not from front to back, but I'm trying to continue to learn and develop my craft so that I know more, because I'm a product. Back when Tom Peters and Bob Waterman wrote a book, In Search of Excellence, Tom Peters said, the covenant has changed. And this was in the 70s or 80s. It was in the 70s. The covenant has changed. In the old days, the covenant was, you got a job with an organization, you worked for them for 40 years, they gave you a nice pension and a gold watch, and you retired. It's not like that anymore. We need to expect to give our employer value for our paycheck, and giving your employer 110% and more for an equitable return paycheck is exactly what you're doing. But I am constantly learning. I would say constantly learn, so that you're ready for the next job, whether it's with that company or with someone else. Or if you say, I always wanted to be X or Y, work on that. One of my goals in life is to be an Imagineer for Disney. I may still do that because I read about creativity. I started teaching a new class on innovation and entrepreneurship because I'm trying to develop those skills so that if I ever get the opportunity, I can do that. I don't know if that really answered your question, but
yeah,
spoke to
it
something
did.
that I'm passionate about. Learn, read, watch, blog, talk to others, and find a mentor. Absolutely find a mentor. And those mentors your relationship will evolve over time, but I've had great mentors in my life that have helped to shape where I'm going. And that's something that I think is important to do, and to be a mentor to others. And because you'll learn from that too.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about resume advice.
Okay.
What are some of the do's and don'ts of creating your resume?
Okay. Well, let me start with the don't. Do not use a template. Those templates were created by a well-meaning computer programmer, but not somebody who is good at marketing and selling in most cases. And every employer, every recruiter out there will recognize it as it. So nice, simple, clean Microsoft Word. And then right now, I would go with, for most people, I would go with what we would call a functional or a combination resume, as opposed to the much more widely used chronological resume. All the same information is there, but it's organized differently. So that's one thing. I'll speak to how that's organized. And if you go to the Eastern Career Services, you'll be able to see that in more detail. So here is the three most essential parts of your resume. The first is a summary. Some people will tell you to use a job objective. Don't do that. Put a summary. A summary is what you have to offer, defined in their terms, what they need. So I look and see what they need, and then I might adapt my summary to emphasize that. Objective is what I want. Just because I want something doesn't mean that they want to buy it. So think of it that way. So the second thing is in many cases, at least the people I work with, it's education. Whether that's trade school or university degree or advanced certifications or whatever it is, your education. The third thing is the most important: your accomplishment statements. I see way too many resumes that will have sound bites on there or job duties. Great employers, good employers, smart employers know that the best indicator of future success and accomplishment is what people have done in the past. So creating some accomplishment statements about what you've accomplished. Don't just say sales. Say by building relationships with customers and fostering repeat business, I've increased sales by my personal sales record by 20%. I work a lot with student athletes. Don't put down shoot baskets. Put down by additional practice and working on my mental focus, I've improved my free throw percentage from 62 to 72%, resulting in wins in 5 of 6 close games. Wow. And I'm not hiring somebody to make free throws, but I'm hiring somebody who's willing to practice extra, work hard, learn more, and work on mental focus, who has improved and made a difference. So what are your accomplishment statements? You should probably have 2 or 3 to 5, really 2 to 5 accomplishment statements in 3 broad categories. And those broad categories should mirror the job you're applying for. So if you're applying for a computer job with, and they want somebody with programming expertise, what are the programming languages you know, or how have you created programs that help? So for people who don't have a lot of experience directly in the industry, what are their transferable skills? How can you show what you can do there?
Okay. So obviously, we're in a time where everything is shifted towards, virtual interviews, Zoom internships, that type of thing. So do you have any advice for how people can network virtually? and also, maybe how I guess they could navigate the job interview
Sure.
via Zoom.
Yeah. Well, first off, practice Zoom, as you and I and Christy and Jesse were talking about beforehand. We've all learned a lot about doing this program in the last 8 weeks since I did the first one. I'm better at it. I'm more comfortable with it. I've got a better background than I did before. I mean, all kinds of things are better. So practice. Get with somebody else and have them be on Zoom, or if you're using another platform, that's fine. But Zoom is one of the major ones, and it's free at a certain level. And practice. Let them ask you questions, just like you can easily Google common interview questions, and your friend can ask you, and you record that, and then you watch it and you play it back, and you work on your skills. You work on your background. Are you looking at the camera? Types of things. The other thing is you have to establish a social media presence, and you have to brand yourself. And I don't think you need to have use every single one that's out there. So I basically use Facebook and LinkedIn. And Facebook is my fun, keep in contact with friends and family and events and things like that. And of course, I don't put drunken dancing on the table pictures on Facebook. You're managing a brand, and you don't want anything that's not appropriate. LinkedIn is what I use for my professional view, and it's a great platform. There are others that you can use, but that's the one I use. And so start building your LinkedIn profile, and you build that slowly, and you can copy and paste things from your resume over in there. One of the great advantages of LinkedIn is there's a place where you can add projects. So what are projects you've worked on? And for high school or college students, something that you worked on in school is fine. I don't really care. If you're a working professional, what are things that you've done? Maybe you've got a hobby. Maybe you were the president of the PTA and ran the Hutton Carnival and raised $5,000 for the school. That's a project. Those are accomplishments. So you build those, and you also build your colleagues, your relationships, and you do that slowly. We get a decent looking profile before you start, and then start adding people. Don't just blindly add people that you don't know. But I've been at this for a while. I've got 2,500 plus people on my LinkedIn account that I'm connected to, and I use those people to learn. So I'm following over 50 companies and thought leaders, and every time Susan Fowler from the Ken Blanchard Companies publishes something on motivation and how to motivate people, I read it. Every time there's an article in the Inc. or Forbes or any of those magazines, I read them and I say, okay, what can I learn from here that I can apply? And I'm not even looking for a job. I don't expect to look for a job, except for maybe being an Imagineer for Disney or center fielder for the Yankees, but my shoulder probably wouldn't handle that at this time in my life. But I look for things to increase my knowledge and my skills and abilities. And if you're not employed right now, you should be doing that 2 or 3 hours a day, would be my recommendation. And you could even put that in as an accomplishment statement. During this interval, when I'm looking for employment, I'm spending 3 hours a day improving my craft and making myself more valuable to my future employer. So those would be some thoughts. Manage your brand. What does it look like? Get help from others about your messaging. Ask 3 people that you feel comfortable with to look at your profile and give you suggestions, and then do those.
Okay. So what new innovations do you think may come into play in the next 6 months to a year in the job market?
Okay. Well, I think there's going to be a lot of technology things because we're and also safety. So I've got a leg that is not quite the way I'd like it to be based on my 1973 college wrestling injury. And so this morning I went to see Dr. Howie, who's an orthopedic surgeon, for a follow-up. And so I'm as I walk into his the hospital and medical building, I'm looking at things and I'm like, okay, they've got somebody here at the front door who is now part of their job screening people. So there's a job that didn't exist 6 months ago. So I do think there'll be a lot of things in technology. There's going to be a lot of things in customer service about how to be a good service provider in a different world. How do we eventually we will get back to some sort of a new normal. So whether you're in customer service or whatever industry you're in, and here would be another example, local example. The Spokane Indians have started a ballpark pickup of Indians Fair. Well, they're keeping their employees employed. They're staying connected with their fans. And so a couple weeks ago, it was hot dogs and typical ballpark food. And next Tuesday, it's Taco Tuesday. And so we've paid our money, drive by, pick it up. So the industries, I'm not as good at predicting that as a lot of people are, but in terms of how you deliver things, how you deliver your services. So Otto Klein and the folks at the Indians are being innovative. They're saying, hey, we want to stay connected with our customers. The Spokesman-Review doing this series, you thought of a different way to provide service to your customers, and I think that's really important. And so those are like giving some examples like that are just examples of the local. Universities are changing. I am so pleased to work at Eastern Washington University, where we decided we're going to be online in the fall. I'm not going to go teach a group of people in a room until there's a vaccine, like I get my flu shot. That would be not wise from a health standpoint. So we made that decision now so that we can work hard to provide the best possible college experience you can get under a new world. My wife is associate director of housing, and they are working hard. They have a Zoom meeting every morning to talk about how can we do what we used to do differently to help new college freshmen who would have been living in the residence hall have a great first year experience. So we have to explode our notion of what work is and think of it differently. That's a skill that if I was hiring people, I would be hiring people who have that ability to how do we get out of our own way and think about the world of work differently. That I think is far more important than some other skills, job-related skills, because that's about attitudes and values and vision. I can teach skills. We can teach people skills, but it's harder to teach them how to be visionary and to think creatively. That's a future of the workplace, I think.
Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, do you have any advice for managers on how to best lead and motivate their teams in a virtual environment as the new normal evolves?
Mm-hmm. A lot of the things are the same. Uh, Build relationships, get to know your people, and try and think about their world from their perspective. Um, when I teach class, I call this the other orientation. So before we started, I said, Amy, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. That helped me to know more about you, which helps me to frame my messages to you in a way that's more appealing to you. So communication is still a process of that's based upon sharing information and building relationships. Right now, building relationships is hard because we don't have the water cooler function. We don't have, we're standing in front of the elevator and we talk for a few minutes. We're missing out on that. And Zoom is a good way to have meetings, and some of the other technologies are, but we're missing out on that. So my question would be, how do you build a relationship with your people? The single best books out there, if you want something to read Susan Fowler's work. She has been working and studying motivation for years now, and has started as incorporating some of the work in self-determination theory. So, most people don't need to read about self-determination theory, but what Susan is talking about in terms of how to motivate people is outstanding. So, but it's mostly about relationships. So how do you and I have a relationship where I know how to talk to you and to work with you in a way that makes you be motivated to talk to me and to work with me? So that other orientation, learning about the other person, building a relationship, I would say is still the number one thing. It's just harder now. This evening at 4:30, the Eastern Alumni Association is having a virtual happy hour, and they've been doing that, and they have a speaker for the first from the University of another professor for 10 minutes to kind of give a little talk, and then people are interacting. They're getting to know each other, and it's hard. It's hard right now. I don't know my students as well as I would like, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? Okay.
Oh yeah, it did. Okay, well, is there anything else that we haven't gone over that you think would be important to share with our audience, or that you would want them to know?
I know. I think you asked some great questions. I guess I would just reiterate, for lots more details on job searches, go to the Eastern website and touch base there and look at the things we've recorded, and hopefully those will be helpful to you. Get on LinkedIn or some other platform, though I think LinkedIn is still the dominant one, and start building your profile based upon your accomplishments and the projects you've done. Use this time to learn. Learn. We all need to do that in different ways, but I'm keeping up and trying to forge ahead on what I know, and I'm probably spending them at least an hour or two a day doing that. And I'm very comfortable and very privileged to have a great job, but that doesn't mean I stop learning. So I want to create value for my students. So create who you are, envision who you are, know who you want to be, and then project it out there and manage that brand. I think those are the 3 or 4 things that are most important. And be prepared for rejection, but that's okay. That's okay. I can tell you that. Here's one thing. This is an exercise I do with students and with people I'm working with. Actually, there's 2. One is, if 300 people applied for a job, I'm not going to compete with 300 people. My odds are terrible, 1 in 300. But if I apply the 80-20 rule twice, and the first 80-20 is being a great product, and the second 80-20 is presenting that in a way, I've just eliminated all but 12 people. Now I'm competing with 12 people for that job. And I'm still not going to get it sometimes, but 1 in 12 is a lot better than 1 in 300. And it's just simple math. And you can tell who's working to prepare themselves, who goes the extra mile.
That is true. That's excellent. Those are excellent tips there too, Dr. Stafford. I love hearing these tips because they also apply to teenagers, being able to list your accomplishments and put together projects that will help you be employable right now as this changes. Because, change is the one thing that's always constant.
Yeah. The only thing that's going to change about change is it might be faster.
It might be faster. There's that. Well, thank you again for joining us today, Amy. Fantastic job today with this interview. Dr. Stafford, I appreciate your time. We are doing another one of these forums at 1:30 today with Mayor Nadine Woodward. She'll be talking with Adam Shanks about Spokane and Phase 2. Everything that we're doing with these online discussions are videos. These discussions are archived on our video site, which you access for free. Perhaps you would consider making a contribution, though, to the Community Journalism and Civic Engagement Fund via the Inovia Foundation, instead of us charging you a ticket price. We are adapting to new ways of doing business and bringing you facts and information that matters to you now. We really appreciate your support. We really appreciate your support. Thanks again for joining us today, Dr. Stafford, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
you.